Hello everyone, CSWord here, and in front of me is a Twisted Vine-based gambling machine. Ignore what I just did. So basically, as we throw items into the front, the Twisted Vine will grow to a random height, and it will reward the player items based off of how high it grew. It can grow up to 12 or 11 in the Java edition and 12 in the Bedrock edition. I'll get into the distribution later in the video. You can look at the timestamps. But yeah, it's a 3-wide design. And if you want to not give the player a reward for every single level, you can also change the design to be a decoder so that you get one item as a reward. Okay, so, okay, should be getting one item, perfect. And anything that's not as it should be will get tossed back out. Pretty straightforward. And with it being such a minimalistic design, it's pretty easy to build. I'll go ahead and get to the tutorial right away. But in case you were wondering, does this work in Bedrock? Yes, it does work on the Bedrock edition. So if I go ahead and throw an item in, we can see it grew up several high. And now we should be getting items. It's a little bit slower on this version for some reason. And again, it does double up for whatever reason is wrong with Bedrock Redstone. But yeah, it's the exact same design and it does work on cross-platform. I did have to make a slight adjustment though. With the front here, the piston here couldn't be placed there because of how redstone will curve to connect to the piston. So instead I just extended this over, put a torch here, and dust to go directly over to the piston. Yep. Okay, so to begin with the tutorial, what we're going to do is start with a sticky piston, and depending on how high you want to build it, I just have it one block off the ground, and then we need a observer here facing upward, and then another one over here. And we'll go ahead and patch that. And now we'll have a dropper facing upward so that we can have the return items. And I'll put a glass block here and a solid block here. Doesn't have to be that, but that's just what I used. So whenever there's something in here, we power this so that it can return the items. And now we are going to have a row of 3 hoppers going across so that the player can throw items anywhere into here, and it will still be picked up. And now underneath, we'll have a item sorting hopper there. And then basically where these blocks are now is where we can put the output chest. I just don't like putting them in right now. And then we'll redirect the items over there. So now we'll extend out 2 and down 1. Dust, dust, and I need the comparator again. And now from here, we're going to put a torch here to power the piston. And the reason I don't want to use a sticky piston with a block here is because the twisted vines will fall down, and we want to minimize the amount of slots that they can fall into or get blocked by. So yeah, using the piston here probably works the best. And now we are going to take a dispenser here and fill it with bone meal. And now we can slow down the system so that it's not running as fastly by putting a dust there. And depending on how many slot ticks we have on this repeater, this is what I've been using. You could go like this to make it ever so slightly slower. At the 3rd delay, it pretty much stops working. And at 4 delays, only half the items thrown in will actually go through the system. The other half will be spat back out. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the front section. And the back section is also very straightforward. So I'll just build up some faux walls here. And now we have a stack of observers. And we have a very simple pattern here where we're going to alternate solid blocks. So like that. And then in front of these, we're going to put down, or on top of these, we're going to put down a repeater. Okay. And if you're on Java edition, you need to set it to 1 tick. If you're on the Bedrock edition, you need to set it to 2. Why it does this, I don't know. Otherwise, you'll be doubling the amount of items you give the player. Okay, so now off to the side here, I'll go ahead and build the other ones. So because we have a solid block here, we can power this dust and put a repeater here. Don't forget to finish putting the dust on all of these. And with the Java edition, we're going to go up to 11 from the base here. And for the Bedrock edition, we'll go 1 more. Okay, now so from here, what I like to do is put a solid block here in front of these repeaters. That way everything is at the same line here. And you can either immediately go into the simplified bubble column version there, where we have the droppers here, and then we want a solid block in front of these repeaters, and the dispenser on the side there. Now, if you're worried about quasi-connectivity, you don't need to, because there's nothing updating the dropper when that block is being powered. Okay? So now we just fill in the rest of these spaces here. Oh, make sure we don't break any other blocks. That went to there. And then we'd build the other half and make this a full bubble column. You get the point. And so it's important to make sure that you always have the items filled. So on this side, it's pretty straightforward. You can simply just have blocks here and like a chest there, and then do the next one up. The other side, you're a little bit more limited on space, but you could still do the same thing. Hoppers there, chests there, so on and so forth. And you'll still remain within the 3 wide profile. Now, when you get to the bone meal chest, that's where you might have some issues, as obviously there's something here. You could build upward and have like chests in between, like so. But depending on how full depending on what item you're using, if it's diamonds, I don't think anyone's carrying 9 stacks of diamonds with them too often, so you probably don't have to worry about that too much. Now, let's say you want the decoder version. So what we're going to do is just rip out everything from this point forward, and we're just going to build a simple staircase for the redstone. And yeah, that one's good. And then we just put dust on top of all of this, and from here we'll just send it directly into a decoder. Dust and comparator. And what I found to make things easiest is to have another comparator to subtract items. I found moving it over 2 really helps to simplify the design, so we don't have to extend this out nearly as far. I just don't like the decoder method so much, because randomly I was getting 2 items to pass through. Not sure what was causing it. But that's pretty much it for the tutorial, and I'll go ahead and get into the statistics for this. Okay, so to explain what I did, what I had was I had a twisting vine here, and every time it would grow, I would have a command block here, set the block next to it to air, and then it would increase the score count by 1. And we can see off to the side here, I said to stop once I hit 1 million for my end, and so once the number 1 here reached 1 million, it stopped, and basically I just removed the vine using a command. And meanwhile, I would have it dispense a bone meal off to the side here to keep the dropper continuously fed. I then went ahead and used a tick warp for a very long time. I forget exactly how long it took, but these are the numbers I got. So these are the unadjusted numbers, because really, while there was 17 times that it grew to 11, it says that there's 187 times it grew to 10. Well, no, we have to subtract the 17 times that it grew to 10 or 11, so in actuality there were 170 times it grew to 10 high. Alright, so in terms of the distribution, I did the same thing as in the Java edition. We had a twisting vine here. Every time it would grow, I would increment the counter by 1, and then over here I said once it reaches 1 million to remove the block that was there, so we removed the twisting vine, and we got our distribution. Okay, so as you can see here, we have the raw input values, and over here we have the adjusted values, and now you can see the percent chance of each of these happening. Strangely enough, the most likely chance is not actually for it to grow only 1 tall, but actually for it to grow 2 or 3, then 1, then 4. That's a very unusual pattern, I would say. But aside from that, some interesting things to note. We do have very similar numbers between the Java and Bedrock edition up until we get to 9 tall. Then things start to change. And again, for some reason, Bedrock gets 12, while Java edition maxes out at 17. Could also be the random tick speed on Bedrock. I did set it to 0, but who knows with that game, with everything. So yeah, basically with a 0.002% chance of a 11 tall on Java Edition, or a 0.0005% chance on Bedrock Edition, you could probably put like a block of netherite there and expect it to never happen. Of course, while doing the testing, I did find that 2 of my 11 on the Java edition happened within the first 50,000 of the total 1 million. So it's completely random. But that's all I have for today, and thanks for watching. Goodbye.